So let's talk about punishment. It's, absolutely vital for enforcing social norms, for cooperation.
For keeping everything from just, well, falling apart.
Exactly. But let's be honest, actually delivering that punishment, it's often a total liability, psychologically, socially, even financially.
Oh, a huge liability, a massive one. When you decide to step up and confront someone, you are definitely paying a price.
And it's not just physical risk.
Not at all. There are these deep psychological costs like guilt or anxiety, and I think this is crucial, huge social costs.
Right. How are people going to see you?
Are they going to see you as untrustworthy or too aggressive, less likable? You risk your reputation, and you absolutely risk some kind of retribution.
It's this fundamental friction in how we interact. We all want the benefit of social order, the justice, the deterrent.
But we hate bearing the cost of it ourselves.
Yeah, we want justice served, but we really don't want to get our hands dirty doing it. So that creates this conflict. How do we keep our social standards high if everyone is, well, rationally motivated to just look the other way?
And that paradox is really the core mission of this deep dive. The hypothesis we're looking at is, I think, a really elegant solution to this problem.
Which is?
What if you could just outsource the responsibility?
Offload it.
Exactly. We're looking at research that tested whether people prefer to offload that duty of punishment to an external, infallible entity.
And in this case, that entity is the impersonal force we call karma.
Right. To minimize all those intense personal and social costs we just talked about.
So this research, it uses a very precise economic tool, the third-party punishment game, the 3PPG.
Yep, across thousands of adults in the U.S. and Singapore.
And we're going deep into that data to see if just thinking about karma, just for a moment, is enough to change a person's willingness to pay the price for justice.
It's a really fascinating look at how these deep-seated cultural beliefs can interact with immediate, costly moral decisions. It might be a shortcut to social order without all the messiness of human confrontation.
Okay, so let's start with that basic attraction. Why look to supernatural agents or forces like karma instead of, say, the police or the courts?
It really just comes down to reliability and scale.
Human institutions are flawed.
Deeply flawed. State punishment can be limited, it can be slow, it can even be corrupt or just ineffective. Supernatural entities, though, they're typically seen as morally infallible.
And completely trustworthy.
Utterly trustworthy. They guarantee that justice will be served, eventually. It doesn't matter where you are or what your social status is, so it frees the individual from having to do it themselves.
Yeah, that makes sense. If you believe the universe is going to handle the dirty work for you, then why should I step in and risk being seen as, difficult or confrontational?
It's a very rational calculation, even if the belief itself is metaphysical.
Right.
But we should be really precise here about the force we're talking about. We're not primarily discussing a moralizing God, which is, an anthropomorphic being that intervenes.
This is different.
This is karma, which is conceptualized differently.
Okay, so how is it defined here?
In this research, it's seen as an impersonal force. So think of it less like a judge and more like a cosmic law of cause and effect. It just operates automatically to ensure moral equilibrium.
Like a kind of cosmic physics, every action has an equal and opposite moral reaction.
That's a great way to put it. The universe is always seeking balance. It rewards good behavior. It penalizes bad behavior, sometimes over lifetimes, sometimes just in the long run.
And it requires no management.
Zero. And that brings us right to the main mechanism the researchers were testing, this idea of offloading.
Okay.
The core hypothesis is that a shared, even momentary belief in karma reduces your personal motivation to punish. Why? Because you expect that supernatural justice will be served without you having to do anything.
So it's like a social efficiency hack. The community still gets the justice it needs because the threat is still real and inevitable.
But it relieves the individual of the burden of being the punisher.
Right.
It keeps the deterrent effect in place, but it lets people redirect their energy away from vigilantism. However, and this is important, the researchers also had to consider a powerful alternative prediction.
And what was that?
That strong believers might not see themselves as avoiding the conflict. They might see themselves as agents of karmic justice.
Oh, interesting. So they might feel a duty to help the universe along.
Exactly. Which would lead them to punish more harshly to uphold that moral order. And as we'll see, the data from Study 1 really forced them to confront both of these opposing ideas at the same time.
All right, let's put this cosmic theory to the test. How did they structure Study 1? It was, what, over 1,600 adults from the US and Singapore? How do you test this in a lab?
They use the third-party punishment game, the 3PPG. It's a really elegant design.
Walk me through it.
Okay, so participants, let's call them player C, are given 25 monetary points. They then watch an interaction where a player A is allocating 50 points between themselves and a player B.
And the allocations aren't all the same.
Not at all. They range from a perfectly fair 25-25 split to an extremely selfish, like, 482 split.
And what is player C's job in all this?
If player C sees a selfish act, they can choose to intervene. They can spend their own points to reduce player A's payout.
So it's costly punishment.
Very costly. For every 1 point player C spent, player A lost 3 points.
Wow, that 1-to-3 ratio is huge. It means you are paying a really high price for your morals. You are literally sacrificing your own money just to enforce a social norm.
Every point spent is a direct measure of how much cost you're willing to take on to see justice done.
And the key manipulation here was a simple prompt.
A very simple prompt. Half the participants got an explicit karma framing prompt before each decision. It defined karma as a law of cause and effect and just asked them to think about it. The other half, the control group, got nothing.
And the main finding seems to really confirm that offloading idea. Just thinking about karma made people less willing to pay for punishment.
Significantly less willing. In the American sample, the ones who were prompted about karma, they reduced the points they spent on punishment by a really noticeable amount.
What was the effect size?
The Cohen's d was 0.47.
Okay, so a 0.47 Cohen's d, for our listeners, that's considered a medium to large effect in behavioral science. So this isn't some subtle statistical wobble.
No, it's a meaningful shift in behavior.
Right. If you were willing to spend, say, $5 to punish someone in the control group, in the karma group, you might only spend $2.50. It's a huge personal cost saving.
It is. And the effect held up across cultures. The Singaporeans who were prompted also reduced their punishment significantly. The effect was a bit smaller, a Cohen's d of 0.27, but still very clear.
So the basic principle was established. A momentary thought about some external, infallible justice system makes you less willing to personally fund human justice. Okay, this cross-cultural part is where the data gets really rich.
Yeah.
So let's unpack that baseline difference first. You said Singaporeans punished more harshly than Americans overall?
They did, regardless of the karma prompt.
Why would that be?
The researchers connect this to the concept of cultural tightness.
Cultural tightness.
Yeah, think of it as how rigidly a society enforces its rules and norms. Singapore is traditionally seen as a tighter culture. There's a much greater emphasis on collective welfare and a much lower tolerance for deviant behavior.
So in a tight culture, breaking a rule isn't just a personal failing, it's seen as a bigger threat to the whole group.
Precisely. So punishment isn't just a personal choice. It's seen less as, burdensome vigilantism and more as a mandatory societal insurance policy. The need for punishment is just internalized more deeply.
That makes perfect sense. And if punishment is seen as that essential for society's survival, it's probably harder to convince people to just offload it.
And that's exactly what the data shows with the interaction effect. The karma frame worked in both countries, but the reduction in punishment was much more pronounced among the Americans.
But the most interesting cultural piece came with the severity of the crime, right?
Yes, the severity moderation. When player A committed the most egregious acts of selfishness, the karma framing had a much weaker impact on reducing punishment for the Singaporeans.
So there's a tipping point.
It seems so. Even if you believe karma is active, if a norm violation is just too extreme, the need for an immediate, visible human response seems to just override that offloading mechanism, at least in a tight culture.
The cultural mandate to protect the social order just takes over.
It takes precedence over the desire for personal cost savings.
Okay, so even if the universe will get them eventually, some things just demand an immediate response. But now we have to tackle the big contradiction, the finding that really challenges this whole simple offloading theory.
Right. The difference between the momentary activation and a chronic, long-term belief.
This is the critical finding.
It really clarifies everything. So remember, the momentary reminder of karma, the prompt, it reduced punishment.
Right.
But when they measured people's pre-existing chronic belief in karma, those who had a stronger belief actually spent more points to punish overall.
Wait, hold on. That seems completely counterintuitive. If I deeply believe in cosmic justice, I should be the most confident that I don't need to step in.
I know, it sounds that way.
But the data says the true believer punishes harder. Doesn't that just completely contradict the offloading mechanism?
It seems to on the surface.
Yeah.
But it actually resolves that alternative prediction we mentioned earlier.
The agent of justice theory.
Exactly. The research suggests that the two conditions are activating two completely different mental models.
How so?
The experimental prime, that momentary reminder, it selectively activated the idea that justice is guaranteed and external. It's an easy out. It activates the offloading strategy. Don't worry, the universe has this handled.
But for the chronic believers.
For someone who holds a deep, integrated belief in karma, that belief might actually shift their self-perception. They might see themselves as having a moral obligation to be the enforcer.
An active agent in the process.
Yes. They're part of the universe's mechanism for achieving that balance, not someone who gets to just stand by and watch.
So the momentary thought is about saving yourself the trouble. But the deep-seated identity is about moral duty. That is a fantastic distinction. The manipulation works by temporarily overriding that sense of being an agent.
It forces them into the low-cost offloader role. It really shows how fragile and context-dependent our moral decision-making can be. The motivation to save personal cost is huge, but it can be overridden by a strong internal identity.
Okay, so for study 2, they wanted to make sure these effects weren't just because the experimenters were explicitly defining karma for people, so they used a much subtler method.
That's right. Study 2, which was with 581 American adults, took away that explicit definition.
So what did they do instead?
Participants were just asked to reflect on what karma means to you in an open-ended response before they did the punishment game.
So it's activating the concept purely through their own personal reflection, no external instruction.
Exactly.
And did the core finding hold up? Did thinking about karma still reduce punishment?
It did. The direct effect size was smaller, which you'd expect with a subtler prime. But when they analyzed the data with multi-level modeling, which you have to do here because people are making repeated decisions, the effect was significant.
So people who reflected on karma still punished less?
Significantly less than the control group. It really validates the robustness of this offloading mechanism.
The concept doesn't have to be forced on you. Just activating the idea in your own mind is enough to change your behavior.
But the real goal of study 2 was confirming the mechanism.
Right. How did the post-game reflections prove that people were actually offloading the burden?
They surveyed them after the game about their decision process. And, critically, participants in the karma condition were significantly more likely to agree with the statement that wrongdoers would eventually face consequences.
Which confirms they expect external justice. That's the belief that allows you to offload.
It is. But here's the key piece of evidence.
What about their sense of personal responsibility?
When they were asked about moral justification, or if it was their place to deliver punishment, the participants in the karma condition did not differ from the control group.
So they still thought the act was wrong. They still thought it deserved punishment.
Exactly. Which confirms the karma prime isn't changing their fundamental moral calculus. They don't think the transgression was okay.
They're just outsourcing the delivery of that punishment to a guaranteed cost-free cosmic force.
It's an operational choice, not a moral reevaluation. They're saving resources, both social and financial, because they believe the universe will hold that person accountable anyway.
This research is just a fantastic synthesis of culture, economics, and psychology. The belief in karma really can be seen as this powerful, highly adaptive social strategy.
Yeah, it fundamentally enhances cooperation by reducing that friction, that huge personal burden of conflict and vigilantism.
It reframes supernatural belief as a kind of sophisticated societal efficiency tool.
It really does.
Yeah.
This ability to offload the responsibility for retribution to some metaphysical, infallible force. It allows energy and resources that would otherwise be spent on constant arguments and retaliation
To be redirected.
redirected toward more productive communal well-being.
The threat of karma ensures compliance without needing the messy, costly reality of one human having to actually penalize another. It's an elegant solution.
It is. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, especially those cultural differences we saw, it raises a really profound question about the time horizon of justice.
We looked at third-party punishment here, watching a stranger be selfish and deciding if you should intervene.
Right.
But what about personal conflicts?
Precisely. The literature review they did on Indian traditions noted that karmic justice is often seen as unfolding over these vast timescales, maybe even across reincarnations.
So if the inevitability of that kind of long-term justice influences your desire for immediate personal revenge, How might these specific cultural interpretations of karma justice, guaranteed over millennia, change not just how you judge strangers, but how you handle direct personal confrontation in your everyday life?
That is the fascinating area waiting for you to explore.